Welcome to the Italianpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Pietro Ferracini, a startup founder with a passion for practical knowledge. Join me in weekly conversations with young and experienced entrepreneurs where we learn from their mistakes. Please welcome Jacopo Malacarne. Jacopo developed his business acumen by working at McKinsey in the early stage of his career. He's an enthusiastic manager with strong leadership skills. Now, he took over a food manufacturing company in Italy in his second entrepreneurial endeavor. Can't wait to dive deep into a conversation centered around career shifts and plenty of enriching experiences with Jacopo. Welcome.
Hi, Pietro. Thanks for inviting me and thanks for the kind words you just used.
Oh, fantastic. Well, my pleasure. Where does this podcast find you?
I am currently in Bologna. It's rather fairly good weather today. That's the place where the food company is located, Dino Corsini. And so I'm very happy to be here despite all this pandemic problem which is surrounding us.
Yeah, fortunately, we are all dealing with this. I usually start my podcast by asking a little question that will help our audience to get to know you better. So what kind of students were you back in high school? Were you the best student, the average kid, or the one that did enough to pass?
No, let me say, I would say if you were to tag me, I would label myself as above the average. Not the best student though, but way above the average. It was therefore pretty easy to go through the schooling because of that. Maybe I had some skills, both mainly mathematics, analytical skills, and also some language skills that helped me, let's say, cruising through the schools, the mandatory schools in Italy. But I was not the best. No, never been the best.
Okay. So you had some above average skills that help you navigate the school system, which is really interesting.
Yes. Yeah, I went to traditional schooling system, public schooling systems, liceo scientifico, therefore scientific topics.
School, yeah.
And then I went into engineering for my degree. So therefore, I'm a mechanical engineer by graduation, but only by graduation because I never worked as an engineer. I took my diploma, put it in a drawer, and started something else the day I graduated. By the way, with laude. In that case, yeah, it was the maximum grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which was very useful. So two reasons. Let's say that the engineering degree was useful because it let me start my first professional experience in consulting. So therefore, that degree was useful to be accepted in consulting at a McKinsey company. And the other one, it gave me kind of an analytical background that is also useful in other applications, not only in engineering. So these, I think, were the two takeaways for which I'm happy and thankful of graduating in that pretty hard school.
So your engineering degree allowed you to then access the world of consulting and getting into one of the big four. Okay, very interesting. And did this?
At the time, most consulting firms were mainly hiring from either economics or engineering. That's for 90% of their new consultants. And therefore, I was in one of the two right tracks. So they came and showed what the business is about. I had no idea about the consulting itself because Milano at the time was far away from Bologna University. There was not such a intense communication exchange. So I really didn't know anything about this consulting. They came, they got the list of the graduates and they presented themselves. And I said, that's a place where I want to go. To be honest, let's make a step backward. I wanted to go to an MBA. So when I graduated, I knew I wanted to go an MBA. I applied to several international schools. They all turned me down and saying, look, it's too early. You just graduated. You need to come here after a few years of work, not after graduation. And so having learned that, McKinsey was a good opportunity because they offered an MBA in the middle of their professional period. So sometimes things work well just by chance in a way.
Okay.
I didn't really look for it, but it was the place that gave me an MBA, which is what I wanted to do as well.
So you managed to get both things. So get experience, but at the same time study for an MBA during your experience at McKinsey.
Yeah. Most consulting like McKinsey basically let you interrupt for 1 year or 2 years according to the program that you choose, that you pick, the MBA program that you pick. So you interrupt for 1 year or 2 years, and you that way you are capable to attend the full time. At the time, it was a full time MBA course somewhere in Europe or in the States.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you go back. They finance it, and then you go back to work for them for a number of years to pay off, let's say, to pay back the financing.
Yeah.
And so it was a combination of work for 6, 7 years and 1 year full-time MBA in Paris. Yeah.
Okay. And what is the biggest learning that you would connect with your experience at McKinsey?
I think consulting, despite, let's say, I think consulting is like maybe other experiences. So I'm not sure saying this is the only one, but consulting offers people, young people, because typically you start there pretty young, a tremendous opportunity for accelerating the growth, your professional growth. It's a very intense space. And so if you stay there for some years, you have an acceleration. There was some silly saying that 1 year represented the 3 years of standard corporate life. So 1 year in consulting equivalent to 3 years in standard corporate life. But somehow it's true in the sense that it's very intense. It's a project for 6 months. It's another project for 6 months. It's another project for 6 months, and you never stand idle. So this acceleration, it's like a school. It's a bus which brings you somewhere in a shorter period. And in this period, you have the time to see many industries. As a consultant, I've always been very curious. So working 6 months in food business, maybe another 6 months again in food business, but the following 6 months or 4 months, you are in financing, you are in financial institutions, then you are in automotive, then finally you are in tourism. So it gives you an opportunity to go through several industries and find what you like the best. So one is an accelerated training, and two offers you a very, very wide angle of vision and experiences.
Broad range of experiences that can impact your professional life later on. Yeah,
it would be difficult to have so many different working experiences in so many industries, one after the others. So that's why it's an acceleration path in a way.
And I know that you actually started your entrepreneurial career later after this experience as a consultant. How would you compare the two? And first of all, can you please tell us a little bit about your first entrepreneurial experience?
Yeah, the first entrepreneurial experience was at the end of consulting experience, of McKinsey and Company experience, and of course after the MBA. So it was at the age of 32, something like that. When I left the consulting, I decided to, together with a friend, a former colleague and a friend, we decided to make 2 investments in 2 different areas. One was real estate development. A typical real estate project, there's a certain asset which can become more valuable because of changes in the administration plans. So you value it and then you resell it in a way. And the other project was very much more operative rather than real estate as long times, idle times and long times, and then all of a sudden, but there's no operating company behind it. It's more professional thing, professional firm. The other one, very operating, was the idea was to build up a chain of pizzerias in Milano. At the time we was living in Milano. So a chain of pizzeria with the idea of having several pizzeria who were in a way benefiting from a central lab, food preparation lab, to supply the different pizzeria, standardize the product in a way, standardize the offering, a bit the environment, therefore the structure, as a typical chain would do today, a typical fast food chain. That was a pizzeria, but the concept is the same.
Yeah.
This second one didn't turn out to be successful.
How come?
Very difficult environment, very, very difficult, very different also from my background, probably. It's a place where, to begin with, you need to stay in the pizzerias, at least to begin with, for the first X, let's say, units, X spots, before it becomes a certain, because before it reaches a critical mass, you need to be there, literally there, day and night. It's very difficult. Different skills were needed. You need to be there continuously. It's less engineering background or analytical background. It's more presence and atmosphere and service. And the point is that you could have a perfect service in one place, but the service in the next restaurant can be very different because of people attitude.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's a service business. Therefore, your mood as a personnel working there can influence the service and the experience that you're selling, and making it a success or a failure. At the time, maybe I was not prepared to face this complexity. And after a few units were opened, we understood that it was not going in the right direction.
Okay.
So I think one of the important things is to give it a try, but to be also rational and objective in evaluating the outcome. And eventually, if the outcome were to be negative, try to understand as soon as possible as a way to terminate and close that experience.
And how did you do it in this case? What were your KPI, your way of assessing if this idea was going in the right direction?
Well, you need to have a business plan. You need to have a previous business plan, which is wrong by definition. The business plan is wrong by definition. There's no number, no figure, no estimate of sales, of costs, of profitability that can be identified right on spot
At the beginning.
So your business plan has to be wrong. So just to be basically, but you have to be aware of that. Your business plan is wrong. It will never be fulfilled, but you can either exceed it or fall short of it. But the important thing is that you need to have it, because that's a track, that's a compass where you are going. Then you will be 10 more, 10 less, 15 less, 15 more. That doesn't count. But the important thing is it gives you a compass of where a few KPIs, for example, that you mentioned, need to more or less fall where they need to fall. Revenues, of course, cost controls on one other, profitability, and you have a timeline, and you see these KPIs that need to evolve in a certain manner. Therefore, this is very clear. If it doesn't work, you read it with numbers that it's not working. So
to summarize, you're saying make sure you have a clear roadmap ahead of you, filled with KPIs that can help you to evaluate if you're achieving what you set to achieve. And if that is not the case, take an important decision that could be also to stop your business completely.
It could be to stop. Something that could also happen is the following. You start off, and maybe this is, let's say, being gathered also talking with other entrepreneurs. You start off and you think you're going in that direction. So your KPIs point to that direction. And 1 year after or 1 year later in the road, you understand that the market simply is not what you thought it was. So now it's two possibilities. One is you close it because several reasons. You decide you need to have an objective conversation and an objective analysis, the output of which could be A, you stop it, you close the business, or you close this adventure, whatever it is, or B, you realize that the market is different and you adapt to the new conditions, to the new scenario, to the new threats, or to the new opportunities. You simply understand that the market is somewhere else. Then you have to steer and go to a different direction and set again a new business plan anyway.
Clear,
because otherwise you're just drifting around and changing line path every night. Okay. So it could be close it down or follow it in a different manner, adapt to the different scenarios that you realize it's around you. In our case, it was close it down.
And what was the biggest learning from this business that you applied in your future career and in the business you're in right now, which is still food industry?
I think it was people with competencies. It's about people. It's not just a solo business or a solo show. It's about several people engaging together. So one is, I was coming from a professional firm, so therefore very, very high skill set and tool bags coming from best university, whatever. There was the opposite, the real opposite in terms of background, schooling, and competencies. So I understood one is competencies are key. Try to find the right competence in the people around you. And if there are none, wonder if you ask yourself if you should go ahead or stop before you invest or you start in that direction. Unless you are a poet, a writer, an artist, but otherwise, 99% of the cases, it's a team.
Yeah.
You need a team. Could be 2, 3, 4 people, but you need a team. It's not by yourself. And so competencies owning this team are key. And there were none. Apart from me and my friend, probably there were none. There were too few competencies there. Second is the scale, the critical mass. Critical mass can help you a lot because you need to grow. You need to grow to gain critical mass to be able to afford to buy new assets or competencies or people in the team. If you don't grow, you remain very little, very thin in terms of a business, then it's very, very unlikely that you have financial resources to afford to hire colleagues, people, collaborators, or even know-how technology, whatever it is. So critical mass, reaching a critical mass is also must be a clear target.
Absolutely. Well, very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And well, why don't you pitch to us, like if we're investors, your current adventure, your current company in the food business?
Okay, let's say I said I'm pretty curious and I like changes and challenges as well. So just to show you or just to tell you how I got to food business, which is not a very linear line. So I went into consulting, then I went, I had an MBA in the middle of it, but then I had this first entrepreneurial venture. Then I joined a diagnostic in vitro company, which is blood examination. And it was an international Canadian / Chinese / Italian. So there were three nations. Diagnostic business, which is not pharmaceutical. Diagnostic is blood examination. Now we are very familiar with tests, rapid tests. So we were manufacturing rapid tests for infectious diseases, HIV, HTLV, hepatitis, syphilis, etc., etc. Stayed there 5 years as a marketing and then strategic marketing and then R&D. Then I went into automatic gate openers manufacturer. So the gate opener is the device which opens any type of technical closures, be it a door, a rolling doors, a swing door, a barrier, whatever it is, a gate. Stayed there 11 years. And then I was number 2 in that company in a way. But the path to number 1 was not clear, was not discussed, was not even mentioned. There was no plan. There was no discussion. Okay. And I was a bit eager to move through the ranks after 11 years. I said and that's probably another learning, that people, very good people or ambitious people maybe, need to be fed with information. We need to be fed with plans. Possible, not precise, but it has to be a certain plan. So I saw an opportunity there. And as a very good Italian eater, I'm also in love with Italian food. So I got to know a very, very interesting food company. And that's, again, about curiosity. So ask many questions around. I would say it's a good, something good to do. through some friends asking questions, they told me, you know, there's a very nice company next to mine. So they took me there, they introduced me to this company. We kind of fell in love, respectively, with the family owning it. It was a very classical family-owned business.
Yeah.
And they had decided, because the owner was 85, he's 85. So he decided to sell. And I was therefore brought to the right place in the right moment. Therefore, I looked for a private equity fund because it was a hell of a lot of money. I didn't have that money. So I looked for a private equity fund who also liked the company, and I participated. Therefore, I drove together with a private equity fund the management buyout of this company. So we bought the company. I am a very small investor in comparison with a private equity fund. The family sold the vast majority, they kept the minority, and now I'm both investors, entrepreneur, and CEO of the company. We produce sweet snacks confectionery, so those products like muffins, plum cakes, soft round cakes in many declinations. We've got an organic line, gluten-free line, sugar-free line, and conventional line. And it's a fascinating world. The food business is a fascinating world with many news, with many recipes, with many novelties, dominated by big companies. Supply chain is dominated by big companies, some big companies, whereas distribution is dominated by large national retailers. And we are in between. So we are a very small companies working with all the main large Italian national retailers. So everyone that you name, we are serving them with private label.
Can you name a few, maybe? If there is some.
Coop, Esselunga, Pan Panorama, Conad, and I just told you 80% of the Italian large retailers. And then in the discounters world, we have Eurospin, which is #1 in Italy, Penny Market, Aldi, Lidl, Aegis, and this is another 90% of the discounters. And we work with them, with many of them, with all of them, with different products, not with the same product. So now again, it's a question, as I said at the beginning, critical mass and competencies. And you go into a company and you don't find 100% of the competencies that you want. It's impossible, simply impossible. If you're lucky, you find maybe 80%. 80% is already very good. If you find 80% of the roles covered by competent people. If you are less lucky, you will get 50% or even less, but 100% is impossible. And now it's a question to build on those competencies, to grow the company, reach critical mass, which in our case is, for example, doubling the turnover in the next 5 years, so that you can buy additional assets, machine, production lines, machinery for producing, or people, or human capital, therefore hiring new colleagues. And I wanted to drive that development. And when I was at #2 in the other company, I couldn't. I was #2. So in a way, I was doing a lot, but not what I wanted. So the challenge for me was, why can't I drive it now? Let's see if I'm able and capable to do that.
You wanted to you wanted to move to the front seat, and now you finally have the opportunity to do it.
Absolutely. And the pizzeria business told me, don't look for small things. It needs to have a certain critical mass. So the scale is important. Now we are 80 people in this company, turnover about 16 million euro. A lot of potential ahead of us, a lot of challenges as well, but that's life, that's everywhere. So I'm driving this bus, and let's see if I can bring it to destination.
Okay, so you will call it a bus, not a car. Interesting.
Now it's a bus.
It's a bus. And let me ask you, what is the one thing that is stopping you from achieving this high goals that you set yourself and for your company?
That there are many other smart people around who are trying to do the same in your market. So competitors, of course. Competitors is stopping a bit or slowing, let's say, down projects. Secondly is the market itself, real estate, but also food business. There are some similarities. Are very unmature markets. So when you think about financial markets, automotive, high tech, pharmaceutical, these are very mature business, in the sense very developed and sophisticated.
Yeah.
Real estate is not. Even though you see a big skyscraper, the people and the work and the supply chain behind it is very immature. It's very inefficient. It's now being digitalized, and digitalization helps for growing this opportunity to make it more mature. Food business is similar. So there are people and roles, buyers or sellers, who would behave in a very sometimes unstructural and immature way. Therefore, this I believe it's inefficient for the whole system, including us. We are part of this system. We are a very tiny player. So the whole system is inefficient, and this calls for longer times. You could do things in less times and more efficiently from an economic point of view, but it takes education and growth and development in every players of the industry to make such an industry developed. We are not very much developed at the moment.
All right. Well, super interesting story. In the last couple of minutes, I would like to ask you the final question. Do you have one piece of advice that you would give to a younger self that wants to start a company right now? Let's say you're 22, out of business school. What would you do?
Okay, that's a tough question, though.
It's a difficult one.
It's a $1 million question. It's not a 2-minute question. What I would say, I think the best for a 22-year-old, or let's say very young person, is to learn. So I think nobody can be an entrepreneur if it hasn't learned something. So this learning can be on his own, or it can be outside. So on his own, I mean, super idea out of the university because of its background, could be. But also learning can come from a couple of years of experience in some other companies as well. So I'm saying you need to have this opportunity, and you need to be able to understand if you have the opportunity, or if it's better to invest a couple of years in learning. And then if it's a couple of years somewhere else, choose the most difficult things. Don't hesitate to save energy in a way. Choose the most difficult things, because you will benefit from it later on, no matter what. But if it's tough, it's difficult, it's a learning experience. And typically there's a selection of people already, a selection of learning. So if you don't have this opportunity and this idea because of any reason, don't feel ashamed. So you want to be an entrepreneur, keep your idea, keep your desire, and postpone it by 1, 2, 3, 4 years. I postponed it, but the idea and the ambition never died. So, and I started way older than 22. So there is time. I'm saying you need to understand if there is some very good opportunity in front of it. Second, and if it's not, just buy some time, but not reading books only, but learning, working somewhere else.
Practical knowledge.
Yeah, practical knowledge developed in another company, for example, in consulting, another company, in a business, whatever it is. Not theorizing on your own, reading a book. And secondly is try to, in a way, challenge this idea with your friend. Challenge this opportunity with your friend. 4 eyes, 2 minds read better than 2 eyes and 1 mind.
Absolutely.
You need to have some trusted friend you can talk to. And again, don't choose your easy friend. Choose the difficult one. Choose the challenging one.
All right.
He needs to, is working for you in a way by finding out flaws in your reasoning or flaws in your analysis. So share this dream with your friend, with a clever one, with a tough one, so that it's a double check. before you launch yourself, and then launch yourself when it's the time. When you feel it's the time.
Jacopo, I cannot thank you enough for doing this and providing a lot of values for all the students that will listen to this and the few that were present today. So in the name of Maastricht entrepreneurs and the Italianpreneur, thank you for coming here and taking a little bit of your time. And we wish you a great day and looking forward to talk to you soon.
It was a pleasure for me, for all of you guys. And thanks for inviting me. And I also wish you, all of you, the best. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jacopo. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Ciao. For the YouTube people, make sure to give a big thumbs up and turn on that notification bell. Subscribe to the channel and follow the Italianpreneur on social media and join our amazing startup community on Slack, where you get the chance to meet the podcast guests as well as entrepreneurs from all over the world. This show is made possible by Patreon supporters. If you want to become one, follow the link. If you found this interview inspirational, I would appreciate a share. Stay tuned. I'll see you next week.